The next day, Natalia and Fraser walked into the sales department at the Philly Group, only to find that Mose was already waiting for them. When he saw Natalia, he didn't hide the burning passion in his eyes. "Tonight, this sexy beauty in front of me will be mine," he thought. "It's crazy to think that such a beautiful woman is with that good-for-nothing loser." As he thought about it, a spicy scene of him and Natalia making love together appeared in his mind, making his whole body feel hot. Natalia glanced at Mose but didn't speak to him. Instead, she thought about the day ahead. Although she didn't believe that Fraser could really sell 100 properties, for some unknown reason she felt a tiny bit of anticipation in her heart. "Perhaps Fraser really can create miracles," she thought. "Oh, who am I kidding? Why would I believe in someone as useless as him?" However, she glanced at her watch from time to time. As long as it was before 9 o'clock, she wouldn't completely give in. "Hey, Fraser, come here," Mose commanded. Fraser glanced at him but didn't move. Seeing that Fraser wasn't going to move, Peter looked angrily at him and was about to drag him over. Watching Peter's aggression grow, Mose waved his hand and walked over to Fraser instead. "Fraser, did I hear someone say that you were sleeping on the floor at home?" Mose asked. "Don't worry. If your wife is good enough in bed tonight, you'll get a lifetime salary here for nothing," he laughed. Fraser's face darkened, and he clenched both of his fists tightly, making a cracking sound. He looked at Moses' sneering face and had the urge to hit him. At that moment, someone announced, "It's 10 minutes to 9. There isn't much time left. Forget about 100 properties. If he can sell 10 of them, I'll be amazed." Many of the salespeople started to heckle Natalia, and her face turned pale. Just as she was about to give up, a middle-aged man with a large belly hurriedly walked in, followed by 4 bodyguards. "I want to buy 100 properties, now," he said. All the employees looked at the middle-aged man in shock. No one answered him because they all felt that they had misheard. Although he looked like a rich person, judging by his clothes, they thought he wouldn't be able to buy 100 properties in one go, no matter how rich he was. There was a lot of real estate. Henry looked impatient as he said, "Didn't anyone hear what I just said? I want to buy 100 properties, right away. I have to get everything done by 9 o'clock. He looked around and saw that Fraser was there. When he saw that he was dressed as a salesperson, he was shocked. When did someone so great start selling real estate? He wondered. Fraser, who didn't want to reveal his identity at that time, walked over to Henry, smiled, and secretly gave him a wink. "Mr. Wilson, you're finally here," said Fraser. "I've been waiting for you." "Mr. Macklemore really likes to play the role," thought Henry. "Yesterday he was a cook, and now he's a salesperson." However, he quickly realized that he would have to cooperate with him and pretend that Fraser was his subordinate. Yes, I was a bit late because I was stuck in a traffic jam on the way here." Everyone was shocked when they heard Henry and Fraser talking to each other in that way. Natalia also stared blankly at Fraser's back. She had recognized Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson is an important figure in San Clemente, and he's dealing with a nobody like Fraser, she thought. He said he had to complete the purchase before 9 o'clock. Surely that can't be a coincidence. A voice in her heart told her that Fraser might really have found Henry, and she wondered what trick Fraser had used to get him there. Mose felt something was wrong, and he signaled Peter with his eyes. Peter smiled as he walked toward Henry. "Mr. Wilson," he said, "I'm so sorry that we haven't welcomed you properly. Is it true that you want to purchase 100 properties from us?" "Yes, it is," Henry replied. "You do have the properties available, don't you?" Peter nodded repeatedly and said, "Yes, absolutely. You can buy them anytime you want. Right now, there are still more than 200 properties available." Henry waved his hand impatiently and said, "Any 100 of them is fine. There are still 8 minutes until 9, so we'll do it immediately." Okay," Peter said hesitantly, then pushed Fraser away. "Get lost," he hissed. "You're not capable of serving Mr. Wilson. Do you know how important he is? Why don't you just go and make him a coffee and leave this one to the big boys?" Henry glared at Peter and shouted, "Who do you think you are? How dare you treat him like that?" Peter was shocked that he had angered Mr. Wilson. Henry waved his hand and called out, "Is there anyone in charge here? Who is this little jerk's superior?" Everyone looked toward Mose. Mose was also dumbfounded that Fraser and Henry seemed to know each other. He couldn't believe it, even though the truth was right in front of him. He walked over stiffly. When he was face to face with Henry, whom even his father had to fawn over, he gave a forced smile and said, "Hello, Mr. Wilson. My name is Mose Ferlin, and I'm an executive here at the Philly Group. I'm in charge. May I ask—" "Cut the crap and get someone to help me," Henry interrupted. "I brought the money, so let's get the transaction moving." He glanced disdainfully at Peter and said, "And I don't want to see this man again." Peter's face turned pale as he looked at Mose. "Yes, sir. Understood," Mose said quickly. He waved to Peter while instructing all the employees to go through the procedures for Henry. "Let's go. You won't be working here anymore because you're fired," Mose said coldly. "No, please no," shouted Peter. He begged Mose to allow him to stay. He had always been loyal to Mose, so he couldn't accept that he was being told to leave. "Mr. Ferlin, I'm your man. You can't really want to let me go, can you? Please reconsider. I thought we were friends," he pleaded. Mose looked Peter in the eye and said, "I like you, Peter, but I'm a businessman, and business is what counts. Compared to selling 100 properties, you're nothing. Besides, do you think I'll offend Mr. Wilson to save you? You were wrong to upset him, and now you have to pay the price." Peter was about to say something more in his defense, but Henry had already gestured to one of his bodyguards. The bodyguard nodded, grabbed Peter's arm, and dragged him out of the office. A series of screams could be heard from outside, causing many of the employees to gasp. The time was 8:59. Under the joint efforts of the staff of the sales department, the procedures for the sale of 100 properties were all completed. Henry called for his subordinates to put the contracts away without even looking at them. He then looked at Mose with a straight face and asked, "Do you know under whose name these sales should be credited?" Mose nodded reluctantly. He knew what Henry wanted and wasn't prepared to go against him. Even though he was extremely unwilling, he still smiled at Fraser and said, "I know. The sales will be credited to Fraser." When Fraser saw Mose's sullen expression, he was pleased. "Mose, my wife doesn't need to wear sexy lingerie when she eats with you tonight, right?" Mose's face turned red as he heard the sniggering around him. He glared at Fraser and shook his head. "There's no need. I was just joking," he said. At that moment, Natalia walked over and bit her lip as she looked at Fraser with an enigmatic expression. "Fraser sold 100 properties for the company. So how are you going to reward him?" asked Fraser. "Don't worry, Mr. Wilson. I'll send the commission to him right now. According to the price, it should be given at the rate of 100 to 200% of the standard rate of the commission." In no time, Fraser's phone received a message. Natalia snatched the phone from his hand and opened the message. It contained the details of his commission, which was $300,000. She covered her mouth in excitement. It was her first time seeing someone earn so much money in one go. Her good-for-nothing husband had finally succeeded. As he looked at Natalia's excited face, Fraser smiled. The meticulous Henry could even see the traces of love in his smile. It seems like Mr. Macklemore isn't just playing with this woman. He really likes her, he thought. This Fairland guy actually wants to seduce Fraser's wife and believes that his work performance isn't good enough. Let's see what I can do about that. He looked at Mose coldly and said, I feel that your sincerity isn't good enough yet. Not good enough? Mr. Wilson, as a token of your gratitude to Fraser, you should apologize to him properly. Apologize properly? Cried Mose. He was horrified, and the other employees looked shocked. Mr. Wilson, you're asking too much of me. I'd rather not sell 100 properties to you than to apologize to this loser, Mose said with a dark expression. So you won't do it, Henry said. He then opened his phone and called Victor Ferlin, who was head of the Philly group and Mose's father. After Victor found out what had happened, he immediately called Mose and scolded him. You little bastard, he shouted. You're always causing trouble for me. I'm warning you that if you don't follow Mr. Wilson's instructions, you can forget about your stake in the corporation. After hanging up the phone, the bitterness on Mose's face became even more apparent. However, he also understood his father's feelings. Although he resented his request, Henry nor his father could be refused. After taking a deep breath, he decided to face it. Clenching his jaw and closing his eyes, he turned to Fraser and said, Fraser, on behalf of the Philly group, I apologize for any grievances we have caused. I thank you for your outstanding contribution, and I hope you will stay with us and close more sales for the company. While the employees present didn't dare to do so, the customers all picked up their phones to record the scene. Soon, their social media accounts were filled with clips and information about what had happened at the Philly group that day. Before long, everyone was talking about how an executive of the Philly group had been forced to apologize to a sales representative. Fraser sneered as he took off his work badge and threw it at Mose's face. Sorry, but this place is too small for me, and the people here are too petty and spiteful, so I have no interest in staying here any longer. When Natalia looked at Fraser, she saw that he seemed as if he didn't care about anyone there, and she was surprised at the change in him. Those who had jeered previously kept quiet, as if they were afraid. Fraser reached out and touched Natalia's chin affectionately, smiled and asked, What about you? Do you want to come with me? She nodded, but then remembered that there were still customers who needed to speak to her. So she said, I still have some clients to deal with. All right, Fraser said. I'll pick you up at the end of the day. All right. As she watched him walk away, she steeled her resolve and stood up straight. Then, with trembling hands, she sent a message to a good friend. He really didn't lie to me this time, and I got a surprise that was both wonderful and shocking. Natalia realized that she had lost her composure. She pursed her lips and looked at Mose, who was staring at her gloomily. He looked like a hungry wolf watching a lamb running away, full of disappointment and anger. Without bothering to say another word to him, she turned around and walked away. It was obvious that the sale of 100 properties by her husband had given her quite a bit of confidence. Mose was so angry that he felt like he was going crazy. He threw a coffee cup against the wall, smashing it into pieces, then left the office in frustration and drove to a bar. Once there, he opened his phone and checked what was happening on social media. He saw that it was full of information about him. Whenever he read a comment that mocked him, he would down another shot of whiskey. After a while, he had consumed a large amount of alcohol, and his entire body was muddled, while his mood had only grown worse. "You little bastard, Fraser," he muttered. "You piece of trash. You got lucky with Henry. But just wait. They said I wanted to sleep with your wife, so I will. There's no woman in San Clemente who I can't sleep with." After cursing for a while longer, he gritted his teeth, and with a fierce look in his eyes, he found a number on his phone and called it. The call connected quickly. Mose cleared his throat and stood up straight, as if he were being very respectful to the person on the other end of the phone. "Hello, Mr. Mendez? It's Mose Ferlin of the Philly Group. I had a meal with you recently." "Mr. Ferlin, you're quite popular at the moment." The man on the other end of the call laughed. Hearing the sarcasm in the man's voice, Mose tried hard not to flare up. After a moment, he got to the point and said, "Gary, I want to ask you to help me deal with a woman. You can name your price, and I won't haggle with you." At the same moment, in a rather classy coffee shop, Fraser took a sip of his coffee. He glanced at Henry, who was standing beside him, and said, "Mr. Wilson, sit down. It's uncomfortable for me to talk to you while you're standing." Henry sat down, and Fraser said, "I don't want to reveal my identity yet." "I understand, Mr. Macklemore. Don't worry about that. Just tell me what you need me to do." Fraser said, "There are 3 things I need you to do right now. First, I want you to arrange for my wife to join your company, and for her to be protected." "No problem," said Henry. "I'll call the personnel department right away." "Wait. Don't make it too obvious. With her skills, she'll definitely pass the interview." "That's fine." "Second, I want you to find a house for me as soon as possible. It has to be fairly luxurious." "Okay, Mr. Macklemore. I think I have just the place for you already. I can transfer it to you immediately, but it's in the process of being renovated, and it will take another 2 weeks to have it ready." 2 weeks, Fraser thought. I expect that James will have a lot of preparations to make before he gets married. He probably won't be able to do it in a short period, so 2 weeks might be okay. 2 weeks is okay with me, he said. All right. The third thing is that I want you to transfer some money to me. $1.5 million should do for now. For the past 3 years, Fraser had experienced how awful it was for a man to have no money. I already have it ready for you, Henry said. He smiled and took out a black card from his pocket. Mr. Macklemore, there's $15 million on this card. Use it, and if that's not enough, ask me for more. Fraser was a little surprised. As he took the card, he thought that he had really underestimated Henry. He's just spent more than $140 million to buy real estate, and now he casually offers another $15 million, he thought. He really does deserve the title of leading businessman in San Clemente. Fraser said, I'll be leaving then, and I'll contact you if there's anything else I need to say. Also, I'll say a few good words to the old man when I get back. With that, Fraser got up and left while Henry looked humbled. There was a time when he had been in dire straits, and it was because of the old man's help that he had gained everything that he had. Because of that, he was very clear about the power the old man and the entire family behind him possessed. The word enormous wasn't enough to describe it. As Natalia left the sales office of the Philly Group that afternoon, she was surprised to see Fraser waiting for her. She was even more surprised to see him leaning against a brand new white twin-turbo sports coupe. He smiled gently and waved at her. She narrowed her eyes in suspicion, but found herself captivated by the car. Walking around their dashing new ride, She ran her fingers over the white fenders and the chrome detailing. Everything about the car said elegance and sophistication. This car is truly a work of art, she thought. She looked at her husband in uncertainty. Did you drive this here? She asked. Are you borrowing it from someone? Nope, it's yours, he replied. I bought it. You what? She said shrilly. What do you mean you bought it? How much did you pay? How can we ever afford this? Even the insurance must cost a fortune. We have better things to spend money on than a luxury car. Hey, take it easy, he said placatingly. I didn't mean to upset you. I actually got a good deal on it. I made them a lowball offer and they accepted it. Trust me, we can afford this. I remember before we were married, you once told me that this was your dream car. I've kept that in mind and have wanted to buy you one for a long time. Sweetheart, for 3 years I've owed you a nice gift. Today I can finally give it to you. He pulled her into his arms, and she looked up at him as her anger receded. A complicated mix of animosity and love swirled within her heart, and she felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She pushed her way out of the embrace. Well, I guess I can accept this gift from you, she said. But next time, tell me before you do something like this. Don't worry. There won't be a next time, he said affably. He held up the keychain and let the keys dangle from his fingers. She snatched the keys from him and slid into the driver's seat. The gorgeous car had attracted the attention of her colleagues, who were watching out of the office windows. Under their envious gazes, she turned the key, and the powerful engine roared to life. Hey, wait for me! Fraser hurried around to the other side of the car and quickly opened the passenger door. It's a long walk home. Natalia had no intention of going straight home. She had waited her whole life to drive this car, and she was going to see what it could do. She turned onto the interstate and floored the gas pedal, delighting in the car's quick responsiveness and superior maneuverability. From the passenger seat, Fraser glanced at his wife's smile and appreciated how she was satisfied with his purchase. This was definitely worth it, he thought. The couple returned home around 10 o'clock. As they turned onto their street and the rush of adrenaline from the new car receded, Natalia found that she had questions to ask her husband. How did he convince Henry Wilson to make such a big purchase? She wondered. How did Fraser find such a prominent client? Those questions completely disappeared from her mind when she opened her front door and saw packaged boxes scattered around the living room. Her happy mood evaporated. These boxes are full of our things, she thought. Are they really going to kick us out right now?
Hey guys, Fraser here. Listen to the full episode of Unraveling the Son-in-Law exclusively on Pocket FM app. Click the link in description to install the app now.